Good day. Welcome to Platts Commodity Pulse Video. I'm John Kingston, Platts Director of News here in New York. Power reliability has always been an issue in California. As the snow falls in the Sierra Nevadas and other mountains in the winter, it isn't just the pretty scenery that people in the Golden State think about. They also think about whether the amount of snow is enough to give the state adequate hydropower when the white stuff melts. They also think about the impact on agriculture, but today we're going to focus in on electricity. With me on Platts Commodity Pulse Video today is Martin Coyne, an editor in the Platts Washington office. And Marty, just a couple of days ago, the state came out with a report about the reliability, or the expected reliability of electric power in the state. And despite some pretty significant problems out there, the report was mostly optimistic.
That's right, John. And the key factor in that assumption by the California Independent System Operator is all hinges on the weather. If it's a normal summer with normal temperatures and regular precipitation, they expect they'll be fine. They'll have more than enough power on the system to keep the lights on statewide.
And that's even though there are two significant problems out there. First of all, the snowpack was very small, and they've got some big nuclear problems. Let's talk about the snowpack. How little snow did they get?
Well, the last reading for snowpack was 17% of normal. That's as of May 1. And there's about 13,000 megawatts of installed capacity in California
for hydropower.
For hydropower, so the water supply is a big feed-in to the hydro output. So it's an important statistic.
Right, but even though there was only 17% snowpack, they have enough in reservoirs that the reduction in expected hydro output was nowhere near as big a drop as there is in snow capacity. So they're still expecting to get, what, about 80 to 85% of normal hydro output?
Something like that. And it's important to keep in mind that snowpack is an important measure because that's the best quality precipitation for hydro output. They also benefit if there's rain, but that has a potential to run off, and where snow stays and melts slowly, providing continuous water for generation. So if there's rain, that's helpful. It's not as good as snowpack.
So I know California had a reasonably wet winter. Right now, if you looked at the drought monitor maps, it would show it to be pretty dry. But the reservoirs out there right now, because of that winter, are still in pretty good shape. So you were low snowpack, but still decent reservoirs, right?
Correct. And looking at all those factors, the snowpack, the reservoir levels, and what they think could happen this summer, the ISO decided to put a 1,022 megawatt D rate on hydro, meaning that by that amount, they could be expecting that much less hydro generation. And that's the size of a large nuclear unit or a large coal plant. It's significant.
But at the same time, compared to a capacity of 13,000, it doesn't seem that much given a snowpack of 17%. So obviously those full reservoirs have helped.
That's right.
Now the other big issue out there is they've been without a significant nuclear power plant near San Diego for approximately a year and a half. Mm-hmm. It may actually be able to provide some help this summer, but otherwise it's still considered down. So can you talk about that plant?
Yeah, it's the San Onofre nuclear generating station. It's 2,250 megawatts, which is massive. And it's been off, as you said, for about 18 months. And it had excessive wear and premature wear on the reactor steam tubes. The company that owns the plant, Southern California Edison, is working with the designer of the steam tubes, Mitsubishi, to try and rectify that situation, but it's slow going. And Cal ISO is not counting, they're hopeful, but they're not counting on any part of San Onofre being online for the summer.
Okay. That plant, does it have a future, or might it eventually just shut down? Of course, all plants eventually shut down, but might it shut down or stay shut down in the near term?
It's a possibility. They're, as I said, trying to work through the issues. There's several hoops that they need to jump through with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission in terms of restarting the plant. They've almost completed one of those requirements. There's another one to go. And certainly if they get close to restarting even part or all of the plant, they will face significant opposition from the anti-nuclear activists in California. So what they've done in the meantime is to basically rely on other fuels, whether it's hydro from other parts of the West, the Pacific Northwest. Natural gas certainly has been a major factor in generation since Songs has been offline. So they're taking other steps to try and shore up the system.
All right, so even though you've got these two significant impacts, these two negative impacts on the power supply out there, the report said that they expect things will get through. They didn't really predict any sort of catastrophe or even tightness. So you mentioned some of the things that have gone on to help alleviate that. Gas has been a significant part of that. California, unlike in oil where they tend to be off on their own, sometimes it almost feels like another country rather than a state in terms of the U.S. oil market. The California natural gas market is very much integrated with the rest of the nation's gas market, which means they've been benefiting from cheap gas as well.
Right.
And they've had a significant increase in gas-fired generating capacity out there.
That's correct. About 1,300 megawatts in 2012 alone. So certainly this summer, that positions California to be in that much better of a position. But to your point earlier, if temperatures get extremely high, if it's very hot and very dry, that's when they could start to run into problems. It all depends on the weather, Mother Nature.
The other aspect of that too, hot and dry weather usually means not particularly windy weather, and they have had a lot of new installed wind capacity out there. When you look at the added capacity over the past couple of years, wind and solar, but I think wind too, is a key component. And that's something that is also helping them get past the problems with the hydropower, the low snowpack, and the nuclear power plant.
Absolutely. They've had record production for wind this year. They've gone over 4,000 megawatts of wind alone. In April this year. So wind is a major factor, but also is solar. And since last summer, they've installed about 250 plus megawatts of new renewables, which is wind, solar, and the like. Right, so that's helping too.
And that's about 25% of the potential loss of hydropower as a result of the low snowpack.
Correct.
Of course, anytime you go big on renewables, you do have the problem of intermittency. And I know last year, maybe it was 2 years ago, we were talking about they had an enormous snowpack, and the hydropower generation was equally as enormous, and it led to some wind turbines being shut down, and they weren't too happy about that. And that, of course, meant the gas generators couldn't operate. Now they may be needed. How is California coping with these problems where, when you're dealing with hydropower or wind or solar, you just can't count on the flow being steady, and that affects other generating facilities down the line? Yeah,
that's a great question, John, and the answer is twofold. The issues related to excess hydro really so far have come primarily from the Pacific Northwest. Now, in Oregon, power is exported right into California, so it's significant.
And up there, they've had a pretty good winter snow-wise.
They've had just below normal, so they're in pretty good shape. The previous 2 years, they had so much extra hydro supply that they were curtailing wind. And in last year, while San Onofre was down, California was helped by the fact that the Bonneville Power Administration, which is the primary wind provider up there, exported a lot of that or the primary hydro provider up there, exported a lot of that hydro into California. It just remains to be seen if they're going to have that excess to help out with the low hydro in California this year. And of course, like California, Pacific Northwest, it depends on the weather.
And of course, the thing is they do have some new gas generating capacity that can be brought online quickly, and it presumably wouldn't cost them a lot because the price of gas is low. Correct.
Yeah, the price of gas for the June forward package is averaging around $4 right now. And that's compared to $2.50, $2.60 last year. Still even though it's up, still historically low.
And also roughly in line with the Henry Hub prices and the prices east of the Rockies.
Yes. Okay. California definitely, as the rest of the gas market goes, so goes California in that respect.
Okay. Let's talk though about prices with this electricity forecast, which is, it's okay, but there's obviously a few risks, which maybe they weren't those risks the last couple of years because the snowpack was decent. And 2 years ago, you would have had the nuclear power plant on. Is it being reflected in the forward prices for electricity?
Not at this point. Because these factors have been developing and unfolding, they're pretty well known in the market. So we haven't seen a big bump in the forward electricity prices for the third quarter or for June. When the summer really starts. What you've seen is around $49 for June, and it's been relatively steady. It's always possible, though, if temperatures spike or if a situation arises where you've got a tightness in the grid, prices, real-time prices, will spike too.
And California, you've covered electricity markets a long time, and of course we all remember the Enron-led spikes in 2000, which of course were not just, they were led by Enron, but a lot of it was a function of the fact that they had a very bad deregulation, a deregulation that allowed this sort of thing. Mm-hmm. California has always been subject to some pretty significant spikes.
Correct, and while these are more related to fuel and supply fundamentals in the market, there's always that mindset in California, always that as part of the mindset in California that, gee, oh, here we go again, more price spikes.
Right, okay. Marty, I want to thank you. I also want to point out that if our viewers want to read a little bit more about this, on May 7th, I believe, you posted a note on this to our blog, The Barrel. So anybody looking at Platts.com will look for The Barrel, and they can read your comments on this. Marty, thanks for joining us today on Platts Commodity Pulse Video. I'm John Kingston. See you again.